any attendees from the public, so we can skip public input, I think. And the December 7th minutes were distributed with the agenda. Could I have a motion to accept?
Motion.
Thank you, Sam. Second? Okay, thanks, Judd. Were there any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand or whatever.
Aye.
All righty, thank you. We have a fairly brief chair's report this month. As you know, last month we did have a presentation from the PTA president at the Tracy Magnet School. And Barbara McCabe and I had arranged to go and observe the morning drop-off on Friday, December 11th. However, unfortunately, on Thursday, December 10th, the school announced they were going to be closed due to a COVID exposure. So that weekend, Barbara and I did a self-guided tour without the children or the traffic, but at least, we have a sense of what the school looks like and what we think the traffic pattern will look like. I believe they are back in school today, but I figured today was probably not a good day to call and see if they wanted to reschedule, since they're probably busy changing back into school mode from vacation mode. But I will give them a call tomorrow or Wednesday and see if we can reschedule that. And Barbara, I'll touch base with you offline and see what times are good for you before I contact them.
Okay.
I also did contact Chief Kowalski of the police department to see if he would assign an officer to help us out with this. And he said he would, and I did not hear back from him until the holidays started, but I figured I really didn't need to hear back from him, and I will be contacting him this week as well. So we should have representation from the police force as well. And that's all I had. Barbara, did you want to add anything else about Tracy?
No, I think we need more information.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get that this week or next and have something to report back to the commission in February. And more importantly, maybe help the Tracy school community resolve their problem, or at least improve the situation. Okay, standing reports. Greg, you have a report for transportation planner?
Yes. So the connectivity grant, like I said, we're still communicating with the state, going back and forth with them, finalizing the design plans for the east-west and north-south. Well, mostly for the east-west
Right.
bike route. I know last meeting we had talked about Strawberry Hill at great length, and I'm sure most of you, I think, were on that email from Mike Yosak that talked about the state has gotten a lot of comments about the lane restructuring approaching Route 1. So they might go looking to revert it back to the original design. So we're right now working with the state to see what their plans are. And obviously from Mike's email, you saw that the city fully endorses them going back to the original design. So we're just kind of waiting out and see what their what the process is and what they're going to do. So we'll keep you updated and keep you posted on what that on what happens there. After last meeting, I sent out the Highland Ave presentation, just kind of a quick overview of what is being planned on Highland Ave from Knollwood all the way up to Meredith Court, the sidewalks and the two additional crosswalks that are being installed. It's about a 0.6 miles of improvements. So, so you all can take a look at that, and because we're planning on moving forward with that, hopefully to go into the next step and putting together bid forms and going from there and getting the project in, hopefully as soon as possible, as soon as we can. But we're kind of moving along to the next step. So.
Okay, but the design has all been signed off on, everybody that needs to sign off on it?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we've met. I mean, the project team I mean, the last time we met, I mean, we pretty much, with the money allocated, and we went through the cost estimation and the money that's allocated for the Safe Routes to School program funding that we have. That's, we're right almost at the number, where we'd like to be, so that there's plenty of money for the project. And, anything else it's added, it's gonna be pushing it as far as budget is concerned for the Safe Routes funding. Especially with the, just the additional sidewalk cost, that's the main cost right there in the ramping. So it's a pretty significant, cost wise for that project. It's a good run of sidewalks. So, but yeah, I think we're pretty much finalized on the project for the, for the improvements for what we're going to be doing. So, and then as far as Seaview Avenue, we're kind of making some minor adjustments to it. I know we haven't, shown any design plans or anything since for a month or two now, but we've made some minor tweaks, nothing major, but we're just continuing trying to make some adjustments to it before we go in front of and send out a quick overview to the adjacent property owners, just to kind of overview what the changes are, and then we'll hear what they have to say as well. So we're going to be working with Steve on that, Steve Kleppen as well, for the outreach portion. So we're just making some minor improvements to Seaview Avenue and the two intersections at East Avenue and First Street as well. So, but we'll keep you posted on that as we move forward, and as we meet with the property owners and see what their comments are as well, because they see it every day. So hopefully they can buy in to some improvements, and maybe we could do even a little more. So, but there is money allocated for the Seaview Avenue portion. So let's see what we can do, and hopefully we can get it within the budget and improve accessibility and walkability to the area. So, but that's pretty much it for me as far as my report. As far as biking and walking is concerned. So still a lot of things going on, but we'll keep you posted as we keep moving forward here.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg. Does anybody have any questions for Greg?
Yeah.
Nope. Hung.
Is this, Nancy, is this when we provide any comments or questions on the information that Greg distributed? Sorry, I joined a little late, so I missed the intro.
Sure.
I guess I could send them to Greg as well, but I had a couple questions just going through things, Greg. Overall, it looked like things are moving along in a really good direction.
Yep.
I'd be chastised by several former commissioners if I didn't ask if there was any possibility of going down to a 10.5-foot lane on Highland as opposed to an 11.
Well, when we put the design together, we had a few engineers, the drafter and myself, and we kind of were all in agreement that 11-foot lanes would be to the benefit for not only because of the amount of school buses on the street, but also a lot of the awkward turns that are on Highland, especially with, Devil's Garden and Soundview. And we just felt like the turning movements would be a little easier for those bigger vehicles with 11-foot lanes, and just make the lanes 11-foot lanes are pretty standard. It's not like it's a 13-foot lane. So,
right. But I guess the point is that you're not changing the street width. So since it's not a hard curb, the vehicle can definitely, use the available shoulder, but the benefits for safe routes to schools and children and pedestrians in the area that are cycling or walking, of getting another 6 inches in the shoulder width is, I would say, far more substantially beneficial and than just the width of the striping. But that's just just getting that on.
Yeah,
on the
I
record.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's not
So
a main strip in a downtown area where a 10-foot turning lane or something that makes sense. But it's not exactly, an urban center, where the schools are on Highland Avenue. So,
No, but you are getting, I feel like it's contrary to the funding mechanism that you're using, it's like, it's a safe route to school and it's not a safe drive to school, right? So it's
Right.
like if traffic has to slow down to maneuver, then that's safer for everybody.
I understand that.
But
I understand what you're
moving on,
saying.
yeah,
But we
but
put a
move,
lot of the investment in this project is going into the update of sidewalks and
Yeah.
crosswalks. And that's where it's going to, the majority of so 6 inches on a striped roadway kind of it's inconsequential, really. We're putting the major investment portion of this in the sidewalks, the vertical, movement of sidewalks and crosswalks and the raised crosswalk and the RFBs. So
Yep.
that's where it's going. So that's where the Safe Routes to School money is from.
yep.
So
yeah,
the
that's fine. That's
striping
fine.
is
So
kind of inconsequential, really, as far as if it's 10.5 or 11 foot. That's
right. Well, I mean, that's a matter of opinion, but I want to move on from this because I had a couple other things that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
So there was on the second page of what you sent us, there's a existing pedestrian connection from Deepwood to Highland that shortens the walk out of that neighborhood by about 1,700 feet. And it looks like you're proposing removing that crosswalk that's close to one of the entrances to the school. So I was wondering why you guys are deciding to not maintain that pedestrian crossing, or if indeed
yeah.
you were
So if you
keeping
look
that.
if you look at the plans, we're removing that crosswalk. We're
Mhm.
then adding, when you come up that stairwell, we are then adding. Is that where you're pointing to? Is that one by the stairwell?
Yeah, there's like, I couldn't see it on
Yeah.
Google because it's like, it's very hard to see, but it kind of
Yeah.
goes through the brush and then up an embankment through a stair.
Yeah. So that stairwell, when you come up, that's where the crossing is right now.
Mhm.
So what we did was we added a sidewalk. When you come up the stairwell, you turn left onto the sidewalk. You walk up, I forgot the measurement off the top of my head, maybe 50
Yep.
feet, and then there's the crosswalk there. So
Okay,
we took it away, but then we added 150 feet up the street.
gotcha. So you just moved it more, probably closer to the entrance to the school?
Yeah, we moved up close to the intersection and then away from, there's a couple driveways right there in the area as well. So we
Yeah.
kind of moved that away, and better visibility as well for the RFBs, because right now, if we left it there, the RFBs would be right in somebody's driveway.
Okay.
So we just moved it up. I forgot the exact measurement, maybe 50, 60 feet.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's still there. We just moved
Okay,
it.
fine. Then there were a couple of the neighborhood crosswalks that you've got are, they're either dead end streets or they're very, probably low volume traffic generators. I was
Right.
wondering if you could attack the curb radii. I think,
Well,
your DPW standard, I think, allows you to go down to 15 feet.
right.
So, if we can't, it's just, you're going through a major project. It's like, why not take the opportunity to reduce the crossing width?
Well, and I understand what you're saying exactly with the curb rate, red eye. But the thing is if we start doing more curbing, the cost is going to be significantly higher. And with this project right here, we're almost there.
Okay.
And if
Is
we
there-
start redoing curbs, then we're going to blow our budget out the door.
Can you squeeze any of that into painting and delineators without blowing the budget? By, helping to daylight the corners and provide some protection at the crosswalks? And just
I
deal with it
guess, I mean,
with
I'll bring
striping?
it up to the project team.
I mean, then, Greg, then you can kick that down to, like a major resurfacing project or something like that, and it can get into a larger capital budget allocation.
I mean, like I said, I'll bring it up and see what they think about it. I mean,
Yeah, Judd, why don't you wait till Colin is done?
we're just, obviously, and then we left off the intersection at Flax Hill as well, because that's going to be a public meeting coming up. So that's going to be another project happening at that area as well. So,
Okay.
That's not part of this specific project, but that's already funded by another project. So,
Mhm.
with another funding source. So, I mean, I don't know off top here, and I'd have to go in and count how many specific intersections or how many adjacent streets there are on that
Mhm.
northbound direction.
Yeah, no,
But
there-
when we
there were-
start
I
changing
was
one,
just-
we're gonna have to start changing them all.
Well, uh, I mean, I would just say you change the ones that are appropriate, but yeah,
Well,
I was only
you
looking at the
say
ones
ones
that you
that are
had in.
appropriate, and then the people who live on those streets say, well, we want them there too.
Right.
Well, that
Or
could
people
be a good
walking will
thing.
say, can we
Yeah,
put
is
them
that
there?
not a?
No, it's not a bad, I'm just saying but I'm
Mhm.
just looking at cost wise,
Yeah,
So that's what we have to take into account. We can't just take into account, we have to look at everything that we look at. So.
Yep.
I understand what you're saying. I will bring it up to the project team and we'll discuss it. And, if they think it's right, then by all means, that's fine, fine with me. I'm not the end all be all, but,
Yep.
if,
and
it's up
the
to everybody to what they want to do. So.
yep,
So-
the last one I had, because reducing the curb radii into the neighborhood streets that encompasses several of the intersections you were looking at. I wanted to know if as part of the study in design that you guys were discussing, did you
Mhm.
look at the Devil's Garden interchange to kind of normalize that to some extent, or perhaps make it so that you could, when you're coming uphill, you kind of turn perpendicular and then it's a one way out, so that you could turn in either direction and then you're only receiving is a little bit easier on the downhill.
We did. Originally we did look at that intersection to use most of the money for that area
Mhm.
specifically. But from discussion from the surveys and discussions that we had internally, they felt like the more investment should go towards the sidewalks on Highland Avenue instead, because they were deteriorating and almost at grade with the pavement.
Okay.
So that intersection I know is a disaster. We did have some preliminary designs to make it, whether it was a right turn only or, kind of change the alignment of the roadway, but,
Mhm.
they decided the money should go towards the sidewalks and crosswalks instead.
Yep.
That would serve more of a bigger number of, accessibility towards people walking and for students walking to school. So that's where the money ended up. So.
Okay, so most of the money's in sidewalks and curb ramps and stuff.
Right. Yes, because as you saw from it's about 0.6 miles, from one to the other. So it's a pretty good run. And obviously the curbing and the ramping and and the raised crosswalk, that was a big chunk, because I did the cost estimation for it. So that was the
Mhm.
biggest chunk was for those things.
Yeah.
And obviously we haven't gotten any bids or put it out to bid yet, but at the same time, who knows, we just did our own, but we'll see what the estimates come in at.
Yeah, and this is what you're proposing is a concrete curb, right, with an asphalt walkway?
Correct. Yep. Bituminous walkway. Yep. So similar to the one they did at row 8, and it's just kind of a continuation of the Safe Routes project
Mhm.
on the lower end.
What's your expected lifespan on the asphalt, the bituminous asphalt?
That you would have to ask one of the engineers about. I
Okay.
couldn't tell you. You have to ask either Vanessa or one of the engineers, because that was not brought up. So I'll have to find that out.
Okay, well,
We'll have to look maybe in the Roten project and see as well, because it'd be the same material.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was it for me.
thank you, Colin. Judd, are you still there?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I got a text message from Diane Loricella, who
Yes.
had wanted to. Did you get a text from her too, Nancy?
No, I see that her hand is up and I was going to go to her next.
Oh, okay, then by all means do. So,
Oh, okay, that's what you wanted to say.
yeah, because she sent me a text and
Okay.
said she was having trouble accessing the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, could you enable Diane Laricella, who's one of the two participants, to talk?
Sure, 1 second, please.
And Steve Kleppen, who should have gotten a meeting invitation because he's a presenter later on, is also an attendee there.
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you, Judd. I was one of those folks that was on the call early, but the system wouldn't let me on to speak during your first agenda item. So thank you, Chairman, for letting me speak. First of all, I just wanted to again reiterate that I am so glad that this task force was turned into a full commission. I always felt and participated and commented on that. And I thank you for all of the talent I see in front of me. I guess you can't see me, right? But I can see you. And I'm really impressed by the talent and the time everyone takes on their efforts. I do believe in seizing opportunity from the tragedy of COVID. And as you all know, people now more than ever are walking and biking, even in the mild winters we're having thus far. I like the structure of this commission divided into, amongst other things, the pedestrian committee and the biking committee. And I really am hopeful for action steps, which I think you all intend. And I look forward to hearing what I wanted just to suggest. Going forward, starting the new year off in a positive way, I am so happy, of course, to connect the dots on health. And oftentimes there is a staff person from the health department that weighs in and advises you. That's terrific. But I also wanted you to consider the following opportunity, and that is to connect the dots with the environmental component. Because we know that getting people out into the public, biking or walking, gets them out and observing and have access to nature and education about nature and health that is connected to access to nature. But also, and we hope in most of Norwalk, it would give people access to clean air and putting clean air in their lungs in a COVID safe way. And I think these things would be a good selling point and marketing point. And I'm very happy. And I give you one quick example, and that is, for example, the NRVT that Jim Carter is the Norwalk representative on. I am the founding president of the Norwalk River Watershed Association, started in the mid-90s. And I'm so happy to say that the group is still alive and kicking, and Louise Washer is now currently the president. Since that particular evolving trail is right alongside an important river watershed that empties out into the Sound, whenever possible, looking for some opportunities to connect the dots, I think would be very popular for not only families, but also adults. I know you're going to have Steve Kleppen talk about the POCD, and they do have chapters on environment and recreation, but this is specific, and I will in the future send you some ideas and opportunities around Earth Day, but other things too. Lastly, I read on your agenda that you may have just a quick discussion about whether or not this commission should comment on the Norden Zoning Commission. They still have an open public hearing process. I've heard it's been postponed till the end of the month, but I do feel, of course, that a commission of the city should not necessarily say they are against or for a project, but I think that the commissioners would be very helped because they are not, they don't have the data about walking and biking, especially on Strawberry Hill Road. And I think this commission could offer them some fact-based data that could help them in their deliberations, because it's up to them whether this application goes through. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, Judd, it's over to you on the bike plan.
Okay. I have nothing new to report, but Greg, since we're all here, I'd like to request that in the next week or two, you could send out dates for our monthly subcommittee meeting so we can start planning things over the winter. Is that something you could do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to meet over the next month? Is that, I know you guys said you wanted to meet.
Yeah, I mean,
Does that give you enough time? I mean, this month or, I mean, because I know you said you wanted to meet, together first and then, to discuss. So I wasn't sure what you guys wanted to do.
if we could start like around, I don't have a current calendar, but somewhere 24, 25, I think we could have some stuff to
Okay,
talk
so-
about by then.
So like the end of the month, do you want to
Yeah,
meet and
yeah.
discuss?
Does that,
Okay.
that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, does the Thursdays work still or?
Yeah, Colin? No?
You're on
Muted.
mute, Colin.
Oh, yeah, I always forget about that. Thursdays, yeah, that should work.
We're still the same schedule that we had.
Thursday. Yep, that would work. And
Okay.
Sam, are you interested in being involved in this?
I'm a little behind on something I agreed to helping Nancy with, which is placing the bike racks and fix-it stations. So I'm gonna stick to that for now.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right. If you feel, I know you're involved with a lot of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but if you're
trying to be.
have any suggestions, yeah,
Well,
you can.
Yeah, Sam, if it's okay with you, maybe Greg can just include you on the
Yeah,
invites,
sure.
and when you have the time, you can attend, and when you
That's a
don't,
great idea.
you don't.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
And Tanner as well. You want Tanner on the email as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Can you include me too, please, Gary?
Sure.
Thank you.
Gary.
Greg, I mean. What time are those meetings?
So we were doing Thursdays at 4:00.
Okay, all right.
Not every Thursday, once a month. Usually towards the end of the
Yeah,
month, on
yeah.
Thursday. So
You don't want to do every Thursday?
yeah, that's fine. And just so everybody knows, these aren't like official like walk meetings. So there's no, there's no minutes or anything. It's just a, committee of the bike commission. So there's not a, meeting take or note taker or anything. It's just more of a conversation and discussion.
That's correct. So, Gary, do you want to be invited to these?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
I didn't get the
Good.
Highland design document. That might be okay, but I didn't get a chance to look at that.
We can definitely forward it to you, Gary, so you can take a look at it. It's just an overview of it. So it's just a PDF overview. So we can send it out to you.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, Judd, is that it?
I think that's it. Yep.
Okay, okay. Barbara, your usual short report.
I got nothing, absolutely nothing. But I think I would take a minute to thank Diane for speaking with us, because I like it every time nature is brought into this whole picture. So thank you, Diane.
Alrighty. Norwalk River Valley Trail, Jim Carter had nothing new to report this month, which is also why he's not here. So Audrey, over to you on the pedestrian plan, and if you want to also include the sad news on the grant application.
No. So yeah, the grant application that we submitted to America Walks for the sort of three-pronged diversity, environment, and walking combo. We did not receive a 2020 grant. We were not an awardee, but they had, I think, 560 applicants. And so we'll try again next year, but over at Oak Hills Park, we'll probably go ahead with some of that initiative because it was a good one. And we'll still bring visibility to walking and the Norwalker program at Oak Hills Park. So we'll keep trying. Yeah, the environment that Diane brought up, you know, when people are walking and biking more, it's better for nature altogether in terms of pollution as well. So that's a win-win for everybody. So the pedestrian committee has, I just wanted to go over some of the action steps that are coming out of the committee lately. We are working towards gathering together some local and state representatives to find out what's in the budgets going forward, and to make sure we're not redundant, or you know, we just want to see where we fit in with some of the funding, Safe Routes to School funding, POCD. So Barbara Meyer Mitchell is sort of spearheading that a little bit more. We want to bring active transportation more to the forefront and just see where we stand with state and local budgets right now. We're actively seeking projects for grants upcoming. And I had sent before the holiday, the New Year holiday, I sent the commission some descriptions for some of the grants and the funds that are available. And so I said to a few people who are interested, some of the ideas that other cities are using for pop-up and quick action grants to bring community engagement into the picture for walking and biking. So we're trying to put on thinking caps and come up with some fun ideas. Even, I mentioned to Greg Pacelli, even from the city side, that there might be some interesting things that can come forward. We're also starting to write some articles and press releases, winter pedestrian safety tips, for instance, and also working with the different constituencies that came together for some of the walking surveys that were done in 2019 for the schools and 2020 for the general public. We want to publish what the results were from these surveys. The public was very good to respond and to reply to the surveys. We want to publish this as good visibility as well. And we want to let the public know that we're listening to them, that we're putting thought and action into their quality of life issues. So we're working on that. Nancy and Barbara McCabe are going to be meeting with the Tracy School about that issue there. So Nancy had mentioned that earlier on in today's meeting. We're also, we want to do some monthly articles in the paper on pedestrian safety issues. And I sent the committee a poster for a seminar that was held last year at Norwalk Library called Driving Mindfully. You know, we don't always talk about motorist or driver behavior, but a lot of folks feel unsafe walking and biking because of driver behavior. So that is one area that to me, doesn't get as much attention as it could. You know, enforcement of traffic laws or reminders of how drivers should be following the rules of the road, certainly being aware, driving mindfully that there are people walking and biking, especially in the winter when lanes sometimes are narrowed because of snow, and sometimes sidewalks are not cleared. So this article that we're putting out right now about walking safely in winter is not only about wearing bright colors or reflective clothing or flashlights, you know, making yourself seen, but also making homeowners and businesses aware that they need to clear the sidewalks so that people don't have to walk in the streets, in the roadways. So we're trying to see some opportunities to reach out to the public and to remind homeowners, motorists, and pedestrians about their responsibilities when they're outside and when the days are short and the nights are long. So we're sort of seizing some opportunities right now. And that's kind of where we are right now with the pedestrian committee.
Thank you very much, Audrey.
Welcome.
Any questions for Audrey? Okay, if not, safety and education, Christine?
I don't have much to report, really. I don't have anything to report, actually. You know, I did try to follow up with a couple people that I haven't heard back from, like the NCC contact for the application that we were going to do with the League of American Bicyclists. I haven't heard back from them. And Nancy, also, remember we were talking about getting the police involved and handing out coupons for ice cream for the kids? I don't know if you ever heard back from them about that.
I don't think I realized I was supposed to be contacting them.
Well, you and I had contacted them a couple times, Terry Blake. But I think he emailed us back and said that they were doing something, but I haven't seen anything. So
Okay.
I'll refresh that email with you this week.
Okay. And you were also going to talk to Mary Oster about doing a blurb about her putting the safety cards in the welcome packs for incoming kindergartners?
Yeah, I did not do that. So that was going to go like some sort of article or something?
Yep.
Yeah, I did speak with her. She provided feedback about that and thought they were a little too wordy. They did it. They're putting it in the books and everything, but she said in the future to remember the audience, and we didn't really write that for that audience that they serve, kind of the low income. But she said just to keep it in mind, like simple is better.
Okay, thank you.
So one thing, I don't know if this is related, but I know Diane brought up the Northern Place, and I see that that's at the end of the agenda, and I was looking at their PowerPoint on their crash data, and that led me to look at the Yukon crash data. And I wonder if our group, our commissioner, is maximizing that information, like Audrey's mission there with the pedestrian, because I don't know if the data for 2020 is incomplete, because it's significantly lower for
Christine, actually, I look at that a lot on the city end, and it's pretty updated. It's probably up till about mid-December now at this point for 2020, and the numbers are much lower because of COVID and other reasons. So, but everything is pretty updated. They're probably at the most like maybe a month behind sometimes, but it's pretty updated.
Okay, well, I mean, the COVID, it's true, but I thought because of the COVID, there would be more people cycling and walking. And, maybe you're right, maybe it's reduced, but it's significantly lower, like the biking.
Yeah, so like the crashes for the bicyclists, I think there was 11 this year and there was 22 last year. So
exactly.
So I mean, it's just, obviously I think the more local traffic was reduced. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Why it was so.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm thinking maybe just in the future that we use that. I mean, if it's to our advantage, and say, oh, what impact have we made, in the city regarding pedestrian and bike safety? I mean, that's a high stakes, right? Because what if the numbers are higher, and I don't know how we can show the correlation between the two if we're doing the work and all that. So I'm just putting it out there.
All right. Thank you, Christine. And I do know that the pedestrian committee has used that as one of their sources of data for what they're focusing on. So thank you. Since Tanner's not here, there's, I assume, no social media update. I did get an email from Teresa saying that she would not be able to attend tonight's meeting. She also said, I don't have any updates on walking, except that we're still working on getting more maps translated And Julia continues to work with Audrey and Tanner to support their ideas for communication. As far as the strategic plan goes, we will be meeting in January to do a third quarter update. And I'll be sending meeting invitations out to the committee. So we will have a report for you next month. And the walking update I just did. So that brings us to old business. Sam, do you have anything to report on finding homes for the repair station and the bike racks and the signs to go into the crosswalks?
So I am actually making a PowerPoint as far as the fix-it stations goes. I was planning on actually meeting up with Tanner and Colin again to discuss the crosswalks, because I feel that my my ideas on that alone maybe are a little biased to my section of the city. And I've been looking at a little bit of the I don't know if you guys are familiar with this app called Strava, but they publish a lot of mobility data, and it still feels inauthentic, should I say, to place crosswalk signs and whatnot based on cyclist data. So I wanted some opinions also from the Walking Commission.
Okay.
So
Well,
I just need to
you've
get
been attending their meetings, right?
Yeah, I just need to get my thoughts in order so that I can ask the right questions, and I'm planning to have all of that condensed and presentable by our next meeting.
Okay, and let Audrey know if you want some time on the pedestrian committee agenda.
Yep. Mhm.
All right, thank you very much, Sam.
Yep.
Okay, and that brings us to new business, and Steve Kleppen is here to talk about the POC in general and more specifically what our commission's involvement is. Steve, do you need to share your screen?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear us?
Yes. Dark. Hold on one second. I was paying bills while you guys were doing your business, so sorry about that.
Oh, multitasking.
Yeah, trying and failing as usual. Yeah, I have a really quick presentation I can go through, and then I'm happy to, I mean, probably would be better served by more Q&A than anything else. So I can zip through that if that's okay. Can you guys all see that?
Yes.
All right, good. So this will be very short. And I'm probably going to say it's the same thing on most of the slides that I go through when I get into the various chapters of the plan itself. And just to give everybody a little background, I know some of the faces that I see in the screen have talked to some of you in the past. Maybe not all of you are familiar with some of the structure and setup of the city. And here specifically is how planning and zoning is aligned. Obviously, everything starts and stops at the mayor. The mayor appoints the planning commission and the zoning commission, who really they hire me. So I am their employee. And underneath me, we have planning and zoning staff and also conservation staff. About a year and a half ago, the mayor put together kind of a different cabinet structure to the government. So we also now have planning and zoning is actually under community and economic development, and Jessica Casey is the director of that group. So she is also another cog in the wheel. And I always throw this slide into when I'm talking to a different group because, you know, I, as part of my job, I think I have to pay attention to what's being said, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And, you know, there's obviously, anytime there's development going on or projects in the city, there's a lot of interest. There's probably, in my opinion, more misconception than reality. You know, you always hear about, you know, Norwalk's developing this, Norwalk's developing too much. But the plan that we put together, which we'll go through in a little bit, and kind of where my group focuses on is kind of a lot more centralized and focused than what's reported. So in the city itself, we've really identified 4 major development areas, and I'll just go north to south on the map. The northern one is the Merit 7 complex. Obviously, that's where the city has the bulk of its Class A office space. There's a lot of development going in residential on Glover Avenue right now. Building and Land Technology, who's one of the major players in that area, has a large proposal in front of the city right now that we've been talking to them for a while. They're kind of on pause while they're doing some more traffic data research, but they have a very ambitious plan to develop the west side of Glover and have put together a large block of properties and are proposing a lot more residential units, taller buildings. So we're kind of working through a lot of the issues that are going on there. Obviously, there's a lot of impacts from the Merritt Parkway and Route 7. And, in pre-COVID times, and I'm sure at some point in post-COVID times, the Merritt Parkway is a parking lot, depending on which direction in the morning and which direction in the afternoon, which direction you're traveling. So that's one large area of development. Where we're putting a lot of focus and effort over the last couple of years has been the West Avenue Wall Street corridor. There was a redevelopment plan that was approved in, I believe in late 2018, 2019, and we redid the zoning in that area. And we're starting to see some projects that are kind of coming in response to that plan. Obviously, one that was approved prior, but is in the last stages of approval, is the Pinnacle project, which is a Toll Brothers project, which is the last link in the original Waypoint development. We also have the Wall Street Place project, better known as POCO. I anticipate both those projects getting approved by the Zoning Commission Thursday night of this week. Obviously, there's a lot of other issues going around with the POCO project, so when that actually gets built and underway is a little difficult to answer. But I expect that, assuming the economy continues on its current pace, that the Pinnacle project will probably break ground this year at some point. And there are some other things that are in the works there, not anything imminent, but there are other projects on the drawing board. Further south, where we've seen a lot of interest and a lot of development, is in South Norwalk, where there's projects that are finishing up construction, that are some that are under construction right now, and there are a lot more that are being contemplated and talked about. So I think that there's healthy growth and healthy development in that area, and I think it makes sense, even though we're in a different world in terms of how people are working and where they're working. That's still your development focuses in and around the train station. Another area that'll be, continues to see development, I think will continue in the future. I don't think we'll ever get rid of big box retail. I just don't think that it'll completely go away, even as we shift to more of a online and digital economy and digital buying. There's still going to be a need for stuff, and people are going to still want to go buy stuff. And the Route 1 corridor has developed along that way. The POCD itself talks about establishing nodes along that, the Route 1 corridor. And what that would mean would be we try to introduce some mixed use developments at key intersections, transform the Route 1 corridor as part of the zoning regulations rewrite, which is just about to get underway. One thing I'd like to try to implement is a form-based code along the Route 1 corridor, so we don't get so many, and I'm gonna just not mince words, we don't get so many ugly looking buildings, we don't get ugly looking signage, we get less massive parking lots at the street, we get more uniform design, just get a better development pattern. It's because it's kind of funny when you get to the Westport or Darien borders, Route 1 starts to look vastly different. And I know a lot of that has to do with how our zoning laws are constructed, but I think it also has to do with what those communities want and how they have put their wants into plan versus what we have done in the past. So that's a narrative we're hoping to change. But like kind of a sub area of development that's circled on the map is East Norwalk. And I think I came and talked to you guys last year about the TOD plan, which was approved a couple of months ago. We have a consultant, as I mentioned, that's going to work on the zoning regulations overall for the city. But their first task is going to be looking at the amenity schedule and the parking plan that was approved as part of that. And they're going to fit test that to make sure what we proposed works. And if not, they'll make some changes and then we'll start working with the zoning commission on codifying those regulations that were a component of the plan itself. Okay. So the citywide plan, which is what's called the Plan of Conservation Development and POCD, is a state mandated plan that's really supposed to be updated every 10 years. If you don't update every 10 years, you're potentially making yourself ineligible for discretionary state funding. The state is pretty good about not cutting people off. We were probably 18 months behind schedule from where we were supposed to have our plan approved, but we were in regular contact with them, talking to them about, look, we're working on the plan. They saw that progress was being made, so they didn't penalize the city at all, which was a good working relationship. The plan itself is really meant to be kind of the guide document for overall growth and development in the city. And those are broad terms which can talk about anything from conservation to zoning, how you want to function your city government, how you want to work on land use. It covers a lot of different things. And one thing that we spend a lot of time on in this plan is the vision for the plan. So I think I have links to the plan at the end of the presentation, but if you click on kind of the beginning of the plan, there's it prints out as an 1117 executive summary, which really lays out the vision, I think, pretty well, and really, we kind of set that up so it could function as a marketing tool for the city itself to say, here's how we want to see our city develop based on the process we went through putting the plan together. One really good thing that the city of Norwalk does is it ties its capital spending to the citywide plan. So when different departments come in to seek funding for the various projects they want to do, they have to demonstrate to the various groups, and one of those groups is the Planning Commission, who's kind of the overseer of the citywide plan. They have to be able to clearly tie that request to the citywide plan. Obviously, there are going to be things that come up in a capital budgeting perspective that don't necessarily or weren't contemplated in the plan. Like if you have you need a new fire truck, for example, you didn't have one budgeted. Well, we're not going to deny you a new fire truck just because it wasn't laid out in the plan. There's flexibility built in for those kind of circumstances. And the plan also prioritizes tasks, assigns whoever, the body that should undertake that specific task within the plan, gives a timeline for when those should be completed, because the idea is that there are certain things that are more of a priority than other things. And as the plan is not meant to be a static document. It's meant to be looked at, reviewed, graded, and in some cases modified based on how things change. Obviously, 12 months ago, we were just starting to hear about this pandemic thing in China and this flu that they really didn't have a handle on. And then 3 months later, we were in a lockdown. So it's obviously things can change and that affect our world and affect our economy in great ways very quickly. So we don't want to be so rigid that we can't adapt and change things based on circumstances that are really out of our control. Some of the major themes within the plan, I'm going to touch on some of these going forward, because even though, like, for example, when we were putting the plan together, economic development was considered at the time the most important theme within the plan. And there were reasons for that based on where things came out of the economy, where things were going demographically and shifts in population, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that some of the recommendations regarding economic development don't take into consideration some of the things that are important to this group in terms of providing walkable environments, having your development be transit oriented, compact living, and all those things. And also promoting and enhancing the bicycle environment and other modes of transit, and not relying on motor vehicles. So there's a lot of things that come into play with that. There's also some other things that were important to the plan, as I touched on, were mobility and connectivity. Coastal issues. Now that's a pretty broad topic too. One of the things that we're going to look at in the future, probably in the next, I don't know, we'll probably seriously start looking at it in at least 6 months, maybe 12 months, will be coastal resiliency and coming up with a coastal resilience plan for the city. I have a couple other things on my plate at the moment that I need to get farther along before we want to take that on. And that's something I think we want to try to pursue grant funding for, but that's something that's going to be very important for the city in the future. It's not a short-term thing that's going to affect us in the next 2 to 3 years, but down the road, it could have major impacts on city infrastructure, city spending, and how and where we live. Education was also a major theme. Placemaking was a major theme. And if you're not familiar with placemaking, that's planning jargon for how do we make these like public spaces and private spaces that are kind of open to the public, inviting, welcoming, and places that people want to go. One thing that I came to the realization on not a long time ago, a couple of years ago, is that it's really difficult to attract businesses to the city. There's so much competition. Everybody's kind of marketing and promoting and offering the same incentives. So why would a company and why would people want to relocate to your municipality? Well, I think the one thing that we can control is making it a great place to live, making it a fun place to live with things to do and things that are attractive. And that goes along with some of the same things that you're talking about. You were talking about the NRVT before. Once that's fully up and online, that's such an amenity, like in things like the Harbor Loop Trail, having public access to water where people can walk around and kind of get out in fresh air. And that's even more important now based on COVID, and people are thinking about those things more. So having a destination city is something that's really going to be important for us economically. I mentioned sustainability and resilience in the context of coastal impacts. So those are things that will be important components of our zoning rewrite as we go through those. Housing, and that again directly impacts your work and things that you're focused on. Is you want to have as much housing along your infrastructure as possible, where you already have your sidewalk networks where people can walk to the goods and services they need, as well as to employment. It's better than having people out on the hinterlands of Norwalk where they're relying on an automobile to get just basic provisions for their daily life. Something that I'm hoping we can focus more energy on in the future is looking at greenways. Where can we focus preservation efforts, and working more closely between the Conservation Commission and the the Rex and Park Commission as well. And the last component, which is something that's constantly being evolved and constantly being worked on, is the idea of public outreach and how do we accomplish that. And obviously living in a new virtual Zoom platform world that has changed significantly. And I think in some ways for the better. I found that some large public meetings are much better managed when we have a Zoom platform, for example, where not everybody gets to scream from the back row and shout down the speaker. I think it's much more productive when we can control the conversation and allow one person to speak. And when that person is done, we allow the next person to speak. I've seen much more polite conversations as a result of this. Now, I know not everybody's going to agree with that sentiment, but that's just my take. And I've talked to some other consultants and other planners, and they're kind of the same mindset that things have been a little more civil and a little more productive since the Zoom era has come into effect. And just hitting on some of the chapters, I don't know, I think I jumped like a bunch of slides here, but I'll backtrack if I have to. So chapter 7 speaks about, and the title of that is Enhancing Open Space, Parks, Trails, and the Recreation System. And these are just some of the bullet point recommendations that come out of the plan. And you'll see that throughout the various chapters within the plan, even though there may not be a direct response that your commission would need to make on each one of these. There are a lot that will require your input, or where your commission has been identified as a group that should have input on those particular aspects or particular recommendations that come forward. And obviously some of these you're already working on, such as the NRVT. I don't know what the status of the Norwalker program is at the moment, but that was something you guys were pretty involved with in the past. Again, we touched on this a little bit before, but in chapter 8, sustainability and the Norwalk environment, again, talking about how do we make things more walkable, how do we become less reliant on cars and more reliant on modes of transportation, which are A, more environmentally friendly, B, more efficient, and B, just, I guess, and I know you guys were talking with some folks before from the public, again, about how the health impacts of these too. Obviously, the more people are out walking, the healthier those individuals are. And obviously, the less people taking a car, the healthier our air is. This obviously, chapter 10, transportation and mobility networks, is right up your alley. Two things that I've talked with Greg about, which hopefully we'll spend more time on this year and over the coming years, is developing a complete streets policy for the city. We've spoken with Brian Badilli in Norwalk Redevelopment. When he was at one of the region COGs, he had several good complete street plans that we're going to work with him on obtaining. And if there's some good plans out there, I'm a big proponent of not recreating the wheel. And that's obviously something that would come back to you guys for comment as well. And we would look to incorporate Vision Zero into that as well. And that, I think, is all I have. And that was really quick and a big, broad overview. Happy to take questions. The links you see here, the first one is our department page, which we are furiously ripping apart and editing as we speak. The second one is the link to the citywide plan, and all the chapters in there, you can see how they're broken out. It gives a background of, how we came to our recommendations and what those were. Specific recommendations in the back, it lays those all out in priority order, who should be working on those in the timeframes that I mentioned. And the last link down there is the Norwalk Tomorrow site, which is really the planning page for the city, which is much easier for us to have our own web presence than working through the city's platform. And on there, you will find the actual citywide plan. We're working on an industrial zone study that's probably about 8 months out from completion. So we're working on that. There's information about the zoning regs rewrite, as well as you can find all the past plans that the city has worked on, including past bike and ped plans that we had put together, and also ones redevelopment had put together. So I'll stop sharing and feel free to fire away.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And I would urge any of you who have not taken a look at the POCD that it's definitely worth looking into, and the structure of the chapters makes it pretty easy to skim through and find those pieces that you're most interested in. So any questions or comments for Steve?
I'm happy to get off early, but I can take some questions.
Yeah, I do actually have a spreadsheet that summarizes all of the tasks that we are mentioned for, which I meant to include with the agenda but forgot. So I will be sending that out to the commission later. Yeah, Colin.
Yeah, sorry. I had to deal with a rogue child for a second there. Can you expand a little bit more about the Route 1 nodes that are being considered?
Sure. So I don't know if that all is going to get incorporated into the new zoning regs, or we're going to do it as a separate study, because when we really looked at it initially, we thought it was going to have to be a separate study. But I'd have to pull up the plan to flag the pages. But it talks about, and I don't remember the key intersections, but it talks about at key intersections trying to get a little more of like a little bit of a neighborhood hub or node at key intersections to try to bring a little more pedestrian feel and a pedestrian use to Route 1, because there's sidewalks up and down Route 1, but it's not something I would want to walk on if I had a choice. I'd much rather take a car if I could than walk the sidewalk to Route 1. So the idea is to try to get a little more activity on those areas. Because we kind of mapped out also when we did the Sono TOD, and we did the, sorry about that. When we did the Sono TOD and also West Ave Wall Street, we kind of did some build out and we know what can happen there in the future. We know what the softer sites are and how they can develop. And obviously the Route 1 corridor always seems to have interest from development. So at some point in the future, we'll probably pull that into a separate study to get some more clarification and guidance. But I think as an initial step, if I have budget in the zoning regs rewrite, we'll definitely come up with standards in terms of design, signage, and so forth.
Cool. I also, I guess, just wanted, you were talking about the recreational trails, and I wanted to drop, I don't know if you caught it in the news, but the Empire State Trail just announced that they completed that 750-mile effort over the past weekend, I guess, which is pretty
Nice.
amazing. And I think they only really focused on that about 3 years ago. So if we can, I'd
Yeah.
love it if we could complete the Harbor Loop in 3 years. That would be awesome.
Okay, anybody else have either any questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much, Steve. You can go back to paying your bills now.
Unfortunately, thanks though. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, and our last new business item, Christine, you wanted to talk about the Norton Place development.
Yeah, so thank you, Nancy. And yeah, anybody can chime in here. I don't really have a lot to say. I just, I know that this is a big proposal. I'm glad Diane, I think, mentioned that the next public hearing has been delayed to the end of January because I tried to find information on it and I couldn't find it when the next meeting was, but I looked at their PowerPoint, this development company, and they are, promising, like, they made some promises that they would provide like a safer intersection at the intersection that we were looking at. I think it's the Strawberry Hill and the I can't remember that side street.
Fitch Street, I think.
Oh, thank you, Fish Street. I was gonna say 4 Point, but and then they also said bike racks, but it just says bike racks. It doesn't say where the bike racks are gonna be. I just don't know as a group if we should be weighing in or providing it, like Diane said, to provide information, like, they have the crash statistics as part of their PowerPoint. I saw that, and they named the bike accidents and pedestrian accidents, and they're very specific. So I don't know. I just was thinking about it and thought we should maybe have a little discussion. I don't know what anybody else thinks. I do live in East Norwalk too. Somehow my comments that I were forwarded to somebody without before we had this discussion, and I don't know how that happened, but it was a little awkward because I was speaking as a commissioner, not as a citizen. So that's it.
Well, how do the other commissioners feel? Nobody feels.
I'll jump in just because I mean, personally, I don't think it's a good project for the city, but unfortunately, I have some familiarity. Well, I have some familiarity with the parcel, not familiarity with the current proposal, other than just what I see in the news and generally knowing the site and that. I think there's a lot of detrimental aspects to, as people are rightly concerned about. But I think what Nancy, you said in the last meeting, and what Diane alluded to in her statement, is that, the commission probably doesn't want to get politically involved, but disseminating information that people, that is potentially helpful is probably in our purview. So maybe without statement, positive or against, we could provide data to the commissioners that shows that shorter crossing distances are better for pedestrians, smaller curb radii are safer for most users, and though it may be more inconvenient to larger vehicles, it's better for the overall health of the neighborhood, and that the wider streets get and the wider curb intersections get, the lower the surrounding property values. The more truck traffic, the lower the surrounding property values, and therefore taxable revenue back to the city in terms of property taxes and stuff like that. So crash data shows that, you know, lower speed vehicles save lives. You know, fewer people get killed by lower speed vehicles than do higher speed vehicles. That's all non-political data that could be shared, and might just be something for commissioners that are approving these things to think. That's my 2 cents. I don't know how we craft that all together, but.
Well, I mean, obviously, one thing we could do as individual citizens is show up at the hearing and present our opinions.
Mhm.
You just look at crash reports throughout COVID. I mean, driving is down, but reckless driving is up.
Yeah, because those fewer automobile or vehicles on the road are going faster. So
Yep. Yeah.
the accidents that do occur are generally much more serious.
Yep.
Yep. I think Judd is about to come back. Judd lost his internet connection. Does anybody else have any opinion as to whether the commission should issue some sort of a statement?
Well, I just want, Colin, were you suggesting that this is kind of a done deal, and after the fact, we should kind of offer some, if they're like, you know, giving some incentives for this?
No, I think I was suggesting that, you know, if, you know, our purview may not be issuing a political statement for or against, but we could issue pedestrian and bicycle and community data that may be helpful in making that decision. You know, and that is not a position for or against. So we're not involving the commission in politics, but we are providing another commission with the data that we are more familiar with, like, you know, there are plenty of infographics that could easily be shared that show, you know, lower speed vehicles are, or, you know, the chances of surviving a crash are exponentially increased, like every 10 miles an hour above 20 miles an hour. You know, so it's like you have an 80% chance of survival across most age ranges at 20 miles an hour. But if you get hit at 30 or by a larger vehicle, it's, you know, it's substantially more deadly. You know, your chances go down to 60 or 40% survivability or something. And that's fairly easy stuff to find. The same thing with effective turn radiuses for vehicles. You know, it's like that's all stuff that's detrimental to the urban environment. And if these, you know, large vehicles are turning through residential neighborhoods and into evolving downtowns, as Steve was, you know, showing us that a POCD focus area is East Norwalk around the train station, and Pitt Street is in Lower Strawberry Hill, and where it interacts with 136 and Winfield Street is an evolving neighborhood node. So, you know, I don't know, allowing the neighborhood to be reconfigured around large vehicles rather than around smaller scale walkability is going to be detrimental to the tax base and the long-term viability of that as an economic center. So, you know, that's just, I don't know, it's just community building, you know, like 101.
Well, I mean, so I feel like though, when it's pedestrian bike safety, that brings people to the city, no, and builds the economy that way too.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that the proposal is going to be a negative. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But
well, yep.
What is their rationale? They think it'll bring positive thoroughfare to the area?
I just think they're trying to, they're suggesting safety mitigations to the intersection. The one I saw that was posted on social was expanding the curb radii at Fitch Street from, probably what's a 10 or a 15-foot radius to probably
Show
like
them
45.
First and Seaview.
What's that?
Just show them First and Seaview. I mean, that's
Yeah, exactly.
that's what they're doing. And if there weren't cars that legally parked in front of Mr. Frosty's all the time, it would be even worse.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, the other thing is that we've done so much work in that area with the bike lanes there.
Yeah,
You know,
destroyed. Colin, I know I saw they made a comment about Fitch and Strawberry Hill and Fitch and East Avenue, and it would. Fitch and Strawberry Hill is already a bad intersection.
Yeah.
They would make so.
I just can't imagine the trucks, the truck traffic sounds horrendous.
yeah, and how come they put out like they're gonna put bike racks in, and we've already done that, and maybe we should say something about that and where those bikes are gonna go. But I mean, I'm willing to, if somebody wants to I don't really want to make a public statement or with information, but I mean, I'd be willing to maybe put a proposal together. I just think we do need to speak up. Not like you said, I agree with you, one side or the other, but basically like non-biased kind of factual to influence the discussion.
Well, Christine, could you and maybe Colin put something together? Because our February meeting is February 1st. And because the public hearing has been postponed, I think that if you would have something to present to the commission on February 1st that we could would not be too late to get our input in.
I'm not sure, because somebody mentioned the end of January is the next public hearing.
Yeah, but usually the comment period extends, but I can double check that and let you know for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
Okay.
You want to get something at the public meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we could either send a note to the commission or we could have something to be read at the public meeting. But if the public meeting is going to be in January, we would need to get our act together pretty soon.
We could also have something on Nancy on Norwalk in the hour. There's been a couple of comments. I still read the newspaper. There's been a couple of commentaries in the Norwalk hour, and I believe in Nancy on Norwalk. I don't know if somebody here reads Nancy more than I do, but those are both places we could get information or our opinions out there. Anybody have thoughts on that?
Well, I think the thing is we would need somebody to put together whatever it is we're going to distribute, however it is we're going to distribute it.
Yeah.
Well, I think Colin has a lot of good information and good points. I mean, I'm willing to do the, to outreach to those. I think that's a good idea, Judd, but I would need help putting something together that makes sense. And
well, why don't you, Chris, do you want to start something and share it with Colin and me? And Colin, or I don't want to volunteer your time. I know, but we could probably do it by.
Yeah, I can. And if I think we could probably tap Tanner to source infographics pretty easily. I imagine he's probably got search covered well.
okay, well, I'll then kick it off with an email to the three of you with some thoughts. And yeah, I just think I'm glad that people are receptive to this. And
yeah, and I will find out when the comment period is going to close so that we'll know that for sure.
Yeah, it would be good if we could get a public, in my opinion, out to Nancy and the hour, 5 days before their next public meeting.
Yeah.
Having said that, from everything I've read, I'd be very shocked if the project did get approved, but you never
Yeah.
know. It seems the opposition is tremendous to it, which I'm glad to see.
Yeah, but I mean, the few things I've read, Judd, it seems like the legal team at least is very confident, but then again, I guess every legal team is very confident.
I mean, it reminds me of that 7-Eleven they were trying to put up on Main Avenue a few years
Oh,
ago.
yep.
Just a couple of old at Fitzgerald awning. They had that very slick, and I don't think anybody on the zoning commission voted to approve it. This reminds
I
me of
spoke
that.
against that, actually.
Yep, I remember.
Okay, well, Christine,
So-
thank you for taking the lead on this, and hopefully we'll get something together and figure out the best way to publish it. Alrighty, I think, excuse me, we're at the end of our agenda, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I actually had one thing I just wanted to ask the group because I just remembered it. I meant to ask Greg while he was on the call. I couldn't remember what it was, but I visited family for 3 days over the break and over the holidays. And upon returning to Norwalk, I haven't driven in months, which has been amazing. But I drove down First Street, and I realized it looked really different. And I later was like, oh yeah, it's because all the trees are gone from having replaced all the sidewalks. And typically, do you think that there would be a plan to replant some form of greenery there? This is really a question for Greg, but I just thought I would ask the group
Well,
anyway.
Greg's still on.
Is
Yeah.
he? Oh, you're in
I'm
my
here.
bottom corner. Hey, Greg.
Hey,
Um,
so you're talking on First Street?
Yeah, I think so. I actually ended up writing a letter. I saw the notes on the trees that said if you object to this, you can write a letter, and I don't know if it ever did anything or whatnot. But yeah, I was just wondering if there's an expected replanting of any of the trees along that strip come springtime when the ground isn't hard as a rock.
I would have to ask somebody about that. I'm not the right person to give you an answer, but I will. I can find out and
Yeah.
see. I don't know if I'll have to find out for you and
Hey,
get to you and get back to you.
Greg, I see Mike Yosak's also on the call. Is if he could unmute. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Colin.
Hey, would Paul be a good person for Sam to get in contact with? Because he's tight with the Tree Alliance.
Yeah, it was a public works project, and they probably will replant the trees, but I think they probably would want to plant them on private property, so the residents would want to, need it in their front yards. But I'm not totally sure on that, so Paul might know though.
All right.
Yeah, that's Paul Sopnick.
Yeah, Sam, I've got Paul's email. I'll shoot you that and get in contact with
Great.
him. He's
Well, there actually was an article on Nancy on Norwalk today about the Tree Alliance, and apparently Norwalk is a little behind where we're supposed to be in replacing trees and maintaining the tree canopy. So this might be a good time to put in your request if it's not already on the drawing board.
Yeah, they've left the exposed earth where the trees were. They just
So that's encouraging.
start.
Yeah, they probably had problems with the roots and everything that the trees wouldn't survive with the
new cement.
excavations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Anybody else? Alrighty, if not, I'm still looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Okay, Sam and Barbara, you want to second?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all. And I think we had a very productive meeting, and thanks to Diane Larcella for her thoughts. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Night, everybody.
Bye.